This is the third of our public meetings. This covers the southern area, of which Ipswich is the biggest settlement, but it ranges from Felixstowe and Woodbridge all the way to Hadley, Shotley Peninsula, and down there. It's the most populous area, I think, of the Suffolk Constabulary Police Force area. And we do 3 of these meetings for this year, 1 for each area. All the notes are taken down by my colleague Anna over here, Aaron Parkinson, and Sandra Graffam, manning the stall there, in charge of all our communications to the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner. So a brief overview of where we are. Suffolk is a very small force. It does perform very well. Very pleased with the latest inspectorate's report that rates Suffolk Constabulary as good. That does put us in the top quartile of performance across the country. That said, of course, we do know there are some huge challenges facing us here in Suffolk. Be it Ipswich, Lowestoft, Bury, or in the rural areas as well. And we do have a threat from the drugs culture, gangs, county lines. That is taken very, very seriously. I want to reiterate the solution to that is not purely policing. That's a crucial part. But it is also about working across agencies, local authorities and others. How do we tackle the root causes and prevent it and make sure bringing people to justice is done effectively, and that's the whole of the criminal justice system, not just the constabulary. If we look at other issues that face us, organised crime groups, and you will all be aware of the council tax increase you have had for the last 2 years, that has enabled the constabulary to stabilise and make further investment in the 21 new officers right out across the county, 3 teams. Steve will talk about that a bit later. But that is about getting after criminals and bringing them to justice. That is a fundamental part of policing, in my opinion. Crime affects everybody. Victims, for every crime there's a victim. And part of the responsibility of all police and crime commissioners is to look after the needs of victims. That sounds easy. We do have a budget of £860,000, which we didn't have a few years ago. But of course it's never enough. And the way forward is definitely about working across agencies. You may know that in Ipswich there are now 8 extra officers as a result of the council tax increase. We have a considerable cohort now of new staff looking in digital forensics and all the other activities that help make the police service here more effective and more efficient. But as I say, there is a long way to go. I'll leave Steve to talk about the operational side, and on your seats there are various comments and leaflets for you to take away. One explains the role of the Chief Constable and the PCC. The budget is the primary responsibility of the PCC, so it's all my fault that the council tax went up, so I apologise for that. But what we have done this year, ladies and gentlemen, is to bring out a comprehensive bulletin, I suppose, which will be updated for the 3rd time later this year, explaining what that extra money has gone on and what it has spent on and what the benefits are that we have derived here in Suffolk. Communication and engagement is fundamental to all we do, and that's why these meetings are so important. Last couple of comments I would like to make. One of them is really to pay tribute to the wonderful work the charitable and voluntary sectors do here in Suffolk. Our commissioning that we do from the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner does do a great deal of work with the voluntary sector, and regardless of what other people think, I believe that Suffolk would be in a far worse position without all the work, help, assistance and endeavour that they do throughout the county, be it to do with domestic abuse, helping our young people, which is very, very important. There is a whole range of activities that they do, and we work with them on that. You will be probably aware that very soon we hope to have a new police station in the middle of Ipswich, which we're running, located with the revamped fire station down at the bottom of Princes Street. Our collaboration with the fire service has gone very, very well. Those of you from across this particular southern area will know we've got a new facility, expanded facility in Felixstowe. Places like Saxmundham and Laceham as well are all in there. We are, I think, at the forefront of this collaboration in the country. And the last point I want to comment on is the very welcome news that there can be an uplift in policing numbers. I don't want to get involved in the political discussion, but what I can say at this stage is that we have been allocated the funding and resources to lift the number of police officers here in Suffolk with all the backup equipment and staff by the end of March 2021, an extra 54 officers. That is the first stage of 3 stages, and it may be that within a further 3 years we end up with another 170, 80 officers. We don't know the absolute details of that, so I can't really comment any further on that. But that will represent a step change for dealing with policing here in Suffolk, and that really is very, very welcome indeed. So I'm not going to say any more because it's going to be about you. Just a few quick comments from Steve, and then we'll get on, ladies and gentlemen, with your questions, and we'll make sure everybody has a chance. So over to you, Steve.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. It was a really important event for me as your Chief Constable to listen to specifically in the Ipswich and broader areas around what your concerns are. I can absolutely assure you the comments that we make tonight, this is the 3rd event that we've had, so we was in Lowestoft a couple of weeks ago, very the week before that. I discussed in great detail with my command team and then across the whole of the leadership team so that we ensure we reflect back some of your views and we can continue to serve you in the best way we can. I've been a police officer now for, I think this is my 35th year, and absolutely I get there will be a number of you in the room that will be frustrated and concerned. Hopefully I can alleviate some of that, and actually if I can't alleviate some of that, I'll be completely honest with you about what we're doing with your money and your police officers, because we serve you, and we're working really, really hard to do the best we can. So what we're doing differently in Suffolk is, as Tim alluded to, so we've used your money, and that is not a decision we take lightly to increase taxation, I can assure you, but we've used your money to invest in proactivity. What does proactivity mean? It means that officers that aren't having to answer the breadth, and I mean the breadth compared to when I joined the police service, the breadth of responsibilities that officers are now asked to deal with by society in the broadest sense, are able and free to go out and proactively patrol the main towns and the county to look for criminals. We're using technology in a really smart way, we're using our intelligence in a really smart way, we're looking to use our neighbourhood teams to work with you to develop, in fact, a gentleman at the front here gave me some information tonight to use your community intelligence so we can focus very much on those people that are causing us the most harm. We are absolutely focused on making Suffolk and keeping Suffolk one of the safest counties in the country. Now, the media will tell lots of different things, and I work, and hopefully you've read some of my stuff about what proactivity means. We can play figures in lots of different ways. But actually, if you look at the figures themselves, Suffolk is one of the lowest crime areas in the country. But I fully understand the difference between the perception of crime and the reality of crime. And one of the things that we are really, really focused on is making you feel safe, I can assure you. So going forward, we've got a big programme of work which is about creating capacity, so stopping doing lots of things that you would actually question, Steve, why are our cops doing these things in a really mature way with our partners so that we can get out, we can be more visible. Neighbourhood policing is going to be the bedrock. Tim's alluded to what the current government have said they're going to give us, so we're taking that in a positive fashion, and any new officers that join our family, because we are a real family force, will look, and I will ensure that we keep neighbourhood policing as the bedrock. Visibility is important, but we need to ensure that we target criminals that are creating the most misery to us. So I fully understand the perception of crime, the fear of crime, and the reality of crime, and I can assure you, as your Chief Constable, I'll be working really hard with the team to make sure that you start to see things differently. It's quite nice, and I hope that you feel this, certainly from a couple of recent public events I've done in Ipswich, where people have come up to me and said they're starting to feel a difference in Ipswich, and seeing some of the work, some of the staff are working really hard, I can assure you, to keep us all safe. So I'm really up for any questions tonight, and I promise you anything that, if I can't answer it tonight, I'll get back to you, and I will equally feed it back to the command team to ensure that we're serving you in the best way we can. Thank you.
Do you want to just explain your role?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Steve Wright. I'm one of the Neighbourhood and Partnership Team Sergeants for the county, and I have thematic responsibility for the best-wide delivery of community engagement, crime reduction, community watch schemes, and the Community Safety Accreditation Scheme. So what that actually means to you is that I've got 11 officers around the county who are out there, engagement officers, and they are responsible for the delivery of our communication strategy. So we do a lot of the output on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Police Connect, which is a really, really important service I'd encourage you to sign up for. We also do the Constable's County magazine, which is on your chairs, to give you a bit of an overview of what's happening across the county. That magazine is published every 2 months, but it's only put online normally, and we'll email it out as well, but it's always available on our website with printed copies, especially for tonight. So we work on that. Basically, in the Ipswich area, you've got Rachel Partridge as your Community Engagement Officer for Woodbridge and Felixstowe, Hannah Creasy is in Ipswich East, Dominic Woodman's is in Ipswich Central, Mike Small is in Ipswich West, and Sarah George is in Hackney. So we've got 5 across the Ipswich area. They're the people who deal with the interaction with the community and do all the big public events and feed out that information. So if you've got any issues, if you go on the Suffolk Constabulary website, their email addresses are on there, phone numbers, so you can contact them, and they'll obviously feed stuff back through to the Safe and Neighbourhood teams as well. So that linked, and just one final thing to mention before I hand over, crime reduction side of things. We can do a lot to feed information to you, but we rely on you to take the action yourselves, to make your home secure, your property secure and things like that. I would urge you to look at the Suffolk Constabulary website for a product called First Principle. It's an A to Z of crime reduction initiatives which will tell you information of what you can do to help yourselves to hopefully prevent you becoming a victim of crime. And that really, we can't do that for you, we need you to do your part of that. So that information is there for you to use. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's over to you. If you don't mind just putting your hand up, if you can keep your questions short, that would be really helpful. And if you could stand up so that we can hear them, and we'll take it from there. I hope everybody will get a chance to ask the question they want. So who would like to go first? Scanning around. Don't all hold back. Lady here, please.
Evening all. Some people in the room know me. I've been in the West Ward for the best part of 17 years now. I'm also here with a hat as a parent governor for Hanford Hall Primary School, just down the road. My kids attend that school. But we do have concerns around the area and crime around the area. So if the inspector in the area could give us an overview of what is being done to safeguard children around the area and throughout Suffolk. To be fair, it's not only about my children, it's about everyone's children, really.
So a particular focus on safeguarding children.
Thank you.
Sorry, I know you were asking questions to answer it, but actually, so one of the things, and the reason I say this is that one of the things that we have recognised working with a number of education establishments is that we need to be more joined up around our strategies to protect young people. So I've set aside one senior officer to work across the whole of the country to develop a strategy, but this is about outcomes, about how we can work more comprehensively together. So how do we divert young people, how do we protect young people, and how do we educate young people, and then how do we then work at a headmaster, headmistress level to ensure that officers, local officers, and then I'll let Richard talk about the locality here, but how do we then work more seamlessly together? There isn't anything in education that does that, and I think that it's the right investment, and I think you would think it's the right investment for us as an organisation to protect our young people becoming victims of crime going forward in the future. Certainly, I think we'd all agree the exposure that young people have now and the change in technology and everything else makes them even more vulnerable, and certainly on our point. So we're really, really focused on how we protect young people.
Richard, do you want to just add a local context to this, please? Can we?
Yes, of course, yeah, very so. We've got an increase in our school liaison officers as well, so we've now got 4 for the southern area. We've got one of our school liaison officers, Teresa England, who goes into all the schools, works with the Suffolk County Council as well, around any vulnerabilities such as county lines, such as any sort of drug abuse. And so that work is going from strength to strength at the moment. We're really making some really good engagements with head teachers and with the schools and partners of the schools as well. So alongside our local Soho neighbourhood team officers, we've got our community engagement officers who support that work. But as I say, we have dedicated school liaison officers that have increased in number, and we're now looking at making sure we're putting the right resources into those schools that need us. So we're having those conversations obviously around, have we got individuals that we need to be discussing and putting a strategy in place to make sure that we're safeguarding them, and that includes going to the home address, that includes extending past the school gates in terms of the family homes and any other support that we can provide them. So I'm confident with the school liaison officer, Teresa, who's been doing the role for quite some time now, so it's quite established in that environment, and our neighbourhood partnership team that are taking the lead on that for the Southern area.
Thank you very much. Have you had a question towards that? No? Right, please.
Carol Jones, I'm a councillor for this area, and I wasn't going to say anything, really? But actually it was Maria's point. It's actually Maria's point. I had printed out an email I had from Kasia, the head teacher at that school, and I wasn't going to mention the school, but it's out in the open. I think the problem here is not just simply liaising and having school liaisons and educating children and all of that, all of which is fine. And, we work with our local police officers like you, Richard, and everybody else, and I appreciate them. But she tells me they're having every single day, 3 times a day, in school hours to patrol their periphery, because they are finding, I quote, knives, samurai swords, needles, broken glass, all the things they've found pushed through the fence. Now, we're looking at the borough. I've asked her to get costings for better fencing there, prison style. I saw in the quote that came back, and he will help with that. But the fact is, they are having this 3 times a day, moving people on, reporting drug dealing and social behaviour, and they do report that to the police. The police assist at the end of the school day, which is quite worrying, and she's worried about her children having to witness daily antisocial behaviour. Now that's not about just liaising, is it? It's about stopping that happening, and that has happened so long in what was the Jubilee area for so long, and it breaks my heart really. I want you to stop it. I don't want liaison, I want you to stop it. I don't want children going to this school experiencing this, Tim. And I understand what you're saying about other agencies and working with other agencies, but every one of those they've had their funding slashed to the bone. And actually I know that's really hard for the police, because when everything else fails, we expect the police to just be there and deal with everything. So you've got my sympathy. But Tim, you've been talking about you're having more officers and so on. I want them at that school, not liaising, just stopping this appalling behaviour which young children are witnessing on a daily basis.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely true. And from my point of view, certainly with our commissioning and support with all the other organisations giving activities for children, I said some time ago, I think you could argue it's a mistake to withdraw a lot of the funding and activities. I said that 2 or 3 years ago. We're certainly doing our share to support the voluntary sector. We have a very generous grant scheme. I took the decision that helps. But we do have to do this all together. We've all had our... No, we have companies that...
It is not about this. It is about arresting people
right, just hang on a minute.
Dangerous weapons.
Right. Yes,
dealing
please.
Drugs
yes.
openly.
Right, please just let me finish, then you can come back. I'll hand that over to Steve. So that's why we've had the Urban Street Gang Unit. That's why we've got the money public sector leaders. Dave Ellsmere is involved in that. We are doing quite a lot. I know it's never enough, obviously, but we do also have to look at how our children brought up, how they behave. We all have a shared responsibility. I'm not washing my hands of it. We're doing our share. Yes, we need to do more, and that's how we can work together. That's the solution. It's not just down to the police. The police, okay, you need to do more, Steve. That's what Carol's saying there.
Right, okay. We are going to go and see the headmistress. We're going to fact find it. But if people are committing crime, that is our job. Absolutely, that's our job. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make excuses about funding and everything else, but I could have the same conversation across the whole county. You know, you're right, young people need to be protected, but lots of other people need to be protected. But we need to focus on who is committing the most serious crime and young people and the vulnerability around it. So we will go and we will talk to the school, talk to the headmistress, we will find the facts and we will work with them to make it better. But I agree with you, this shouldn't be about building bigger, harder fences and protect it out, because where does this ever end? But there has to be a balance. I welcome your view, you're right. I see us as a simile to the A&E department. Yeah? We have seen, as you have recognised as a councillor, lots of other organisations had their budgets cut. We have had our budgets cut. I've spent the last 3 years in this organisation, sadly doing nothing more than actually working out how we can keep daily policing going. Fortunately, our budget has been stabilised this year, so this is why I'm feeling positive. Now we can invest in our people, in leadership and proactivity, so we can get back to target these people. However, we have to, hence why I spoke about this programme I'm doing about the capacity piece, getting back to doing what you all want me to do as your Chief Constable, which is, to your point, arresting criminals. But that comes at a price, because I'm now going to have to say to many other people, we are not doing that. Yeah, because we can't be the A&E. When you can't get a GP, we all turn up at the A&E department. You wouldn't believe this gentleman here, rightly so, challenged me earlier about 101. How long he had to wait on 101. Yeah? Who's not frustrated with 101? But if you actually analyse, half of the 101 calls, it's because you can't call anyone else. So you're calling us. Now I promise you, I'm not being defensive as your chief. I'm trying to be realistic so we can all work and understand this properly together. Because there is a path out of this. Absolutely there's a path out of this. We've got some new officers coming, but they're new. We've got to train them, we've got to educate them, we've got to get them experience. We're getting them in the right places. We've just put some new patrols into the Ipswich area that you should be seeing every night now, which are anti-robbery, anti-drugs patrols. We're making some significant arrests. And actually, I'm starting to feel, you may not see it yourselves, I'm starting to see, because I see all the overnight crime logs, starting to see us slow drift in the right direction. We're absolutely focused, I can assure you, on keeping you safe by arresting bad people. That is our job.
Okay, thanks. Richard, you want to
Just another piece. Not to repeat too much, but in terms of locally, we have had an uplift in our safe and neighbourhood teams. I know I spoke about school liaison. That's one strand to it. Our other strand is enforcement. We have increased our enforcement activity, not only locally as a central SNT. I'm aware of weapons being found. I'm not aware of particular concerns with that school to that level. So as per the chief, I will make sure that we make contact with the headmistress. We do utilise our powers, and especially when it comes to antisocial behaviour, including dispersal powers and obviously any offences that are brought to our attention. I always look at it as enforcement and engagement. It's important that we enforce it, but also engagement longer term. A lot of the time it's around actually having the support from the partners, because sometimes if officers turn up, you've got a group of people together, unless they're committing a crime, actually sometimes we can be quite limited in what we can do, but that's why we have legislation that assists us with that. We do utilise that. We have had a recent Operation Parkland, which was over 7 months, which specifically targeted antisocial behaviour in the town, with some really positive results, arrests, stop searches, various encounters, and these are with people that are known to carry knives and are known for violence. As per the chief has said, there is a drive in targeting violence in this area, which obviously captures in terms of those children that are vulnerable within school times and after. Another quick aspect is the design out crime officer who we have dedicated at Ipswich. We work really closely, and again, unless I'm not sure if she's worked with that school, but again, we can give that expert advice around actually making that a lot safer environment for the children.
Good, thanks. Another question here, please.
I'm a local councillor as well for Holywells in the south east, and I'm also the current mayor, and we, as we've said, we're very concerned about the safety of young people across the town and in public places. And what I was interested in, you were talking about the increases in funds combined with being proactive. And what I wanted to know was some numbers, because when I went on a foot patrol in Holywells a while back, and the policeman who I went out with said he also covered Felixstowe. So what I want to know is, have you got more dedicated people on patrol, and what are the numbers, and are they focused on Ipswich, or are they having to split their time with areas outside Ipswich? Because I want to see, this is what people need, is to know that there are feet on the ground, there's people out there, proactively, as you say.
Okay. So I'll deal with that.
Well, I think one of the biggest problems is with crime, it's the street lights are going out at 11:30.
Yeah.
Now, I think the criminals must have thought they died and gone there.
They shouldn't
That's what I think it's one of the biggest problems.
I'll come back to that because that's really important.
And then what is the time, please, ladies and gentlemen, otherwise we'll get them up.
I just want to say that in this little patch, around Jupp Park, we've got the lights on, and it was because the police went to the county council and said we must have them on here, and the residents say they do stay on. But perhaps you speak to me later.
Yeah.
Depends
Same where I live.
depends where you are.
So come back to your point. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So what does proactivity mean? So I get absolutely, right? We're getting 54 police officers in the next 18 months for the whole of Suffolk. So let's be quite realistic about what we can do with 54 police officers. What proactivity means for me is I can have a group of officers that are agile and dynamic, where we are led by intelligence. So tonight we've got those different pieces of intelligence where crime is being committed, that we move very quickly, we get on the front foot, and we arrest criminals at the outset. If I spread the 54 officers across the whole of Suffolk, would you see a difference? It'd be negligible, wouldn't it? I wish I had more, but as we get more officers over the coming years, absolutely we will look to layer them in terms of neighbourhood patrolling. But I could give you an officer that could walk around here for 8 hours a day, 4 days a week by the time you put leave and everything else in. I need you to trust me as your chief that actually, from all my years of experience, mostly in London and Birmingham, that does not lead to a decrease in crime. What leads to a decrease in crime is using intelligence, being proactive and being agile, and arresting criminals, because criminals become emboldened. And I've been out to patrol in this area a few times, and I understand what you're saying. Where actually quite young people think they can get away with doing all sorts. We're not tolerating that, I can promise you. We've put a lot of investment in terms of the Sentinel teams that are really well equipped. Sorry to use the analogies, it's just we love giving teams names in the comments because it makes us understand who does what differently. And we are absolutely going to be on the front foot as an organisation. I've just spent a lot of time with my sergeants, outlined very clearly what I need them to do for us. We put the right investment in training, the right investment in technology, and we're going to start to see the results, I promise you. And if not, come and see me as the mayor, and you can hold me to account.
Excuse me, just butting in. Are you saying, therefore, that you, from your experience, police visibility is not a deterrent to criminals?
What I'm saying to you, with a small amount, so if I had the numbers to put 54 police officers into Ipswich, out on foot patrol every day, of course we'd see a difference. But 54 police officers into the whole of the county of Suffolk, spread across all that...
What about the rest of the police force you've currently got? This is 54 in addition to how many?
Total head count is about 1,100 for the whole of Suffolk. So we're policing just shy of 1 million people.
But there's a lot of fields with nothing going on. I'm just slightly concerned.
I think if you lived in Suffolk and you said, actually, the people of Ipswich want all the police officers,
I'm not suggesting that at all. My question really was, from your experience, you're suggesting that police officer visibility isn't a deterrent.
Sorry?
You are suggesting that.
No, I'm not.
That's what you've just said.
Let me be really clear. Let me be really clear. I'm saying 54 police officers. Visibility is important for community confidence. Absolutely is. I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is, with that small amount of officers, I have to use those numbers really, really carefully to ensure... What do you want? Okay? So I'm guessing... Sorry, sir?
No, nothing I'm saying.
No.
No, I wasn't saying anything.
All right. Well, what I'm suggesting is, what we all want to stay safe is that when we go home tonight, our houses haven't been broken into. That actually our cars haven't been broken into and we can walk around the streets of Ipswich safely. Bury St Edmunds, the middle of Suffolk or wherever. With 54 additional police officers over 18 months, yeah, I need to use that money, those investments wisely so that we are catching criminals and convicting criminals. Because we're not awash with criminals. What keeps us safe is actually catching and convicting criminals. Foot patrol can be effective, but actually a criminal, trust me, because I've been a police officer a while, will watch an officer walk down the street, avoid them, hear our car in the middle of the night, because actually in the middle of the night not many people drive around, and actually then do something differently. We need to be intelligence-led, we need to be proactive, we need to be on the front foot, and by catching and convicting criminals is what keeps us safe. Trust me, if I had more officers, I'd love to put officers out everywhere, because it does, you're right, I agree, it makes us feel safe.
Of course,
which is a really, really important thing.
The spin-off from visibility for the public, it gives them confidence
Exactly.
that the police have a
We're
presence.
violently agreeing, sir.
I'm from Sorry, I'm from Felixstowe.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, I'm being totally honest here. On one hand, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen a police officer in Felixstowe.
Yeah. And I...
Right, I'll cover. Right, question here first, and I'm going to be fair about this.
Right. I'd like to raise an important. I'm Roger Baker from Felixstowe. I'd like to raise a question which is not about Felixstowe, it is about the whole of the county. And I'd particularly like to raise the Chief Constable. And I think, listening to what these ladies are saying, what other people are saying about extra numbers, you said several times, if I had more numbers, right, I think I may, on the way of giving you more numbers, if you're willing to take the necessary action. I apologise slightly because in order to ask you the question, which is very, very simple, a very simple question for you, I think it's necessary for me just to go over a little bit of preamble. I will be quick, a little bit of preamble for the people here who maybe don't know the context of my question. When you ask you the question, they say, why is he asking that? Let me just give a little bit of context, please bear with me. The thing I'd like to question you about, the subject, is the question of the management of your sickness regimes, the recuperative duties and the adjustment duties. I've been looking at this subject for many years. Tim and I have had discussions, fruitless discussions, over the last
We've had a discussion.
Fruitless discussion over the last 3 years about this. Nothing ever gets done, but never mind. We've had discussions about this. Now, I think the existence of these schemes is obviously a very good idea. The idea is, of course, officers who are claiming, I use the word claiming, who are claiming to be so sick and injured and stressed and all the rest of it, who can't do their job fully, are allowed to go on restricted duties of some kind. Allowances are made so they don't have to do things that scare them or worry them, or maybe if they've been injured they obviously can't do. So they're very good. I'm not implying we shouldn't have these schemes. They're very good schemes and they allow officers to get back to 100% effectiveness, right? Good schemes. Now, the trouble is that the Home Office every year publishes a list of all the constabularies in England and Wales. 43 constabularies. There's the list of all of them, and it publishes very detailed figures of how many, for this particular study, how many officers in each of the constabularies is on these schemes. How many have been given these concessions towards not being 100% effective because of claimed illness, right? Now, the percentage, I'll just give you an idea, you're very welcome to copy this, I've got some copies. The percentage of officers throughout the UK it varies a lot, but typically, one of the best, strangely, is your former constabulary, Nottinghamshire, has 4% of officers. Nottinghamshire is one of the best. 4% of officers are on these special regimes, okay? And the average, if you look down the average, you're talking about 5-6%, maybe 7%, something like that. The Met, for example, which is one of the most difficult, dangerous places, stressful places to police, has 8% of its officers on these special schemes because of their injuries and stress and all the rest of it. Okay? So if you just bear those figures in mind, the very best is 4%. The Met, which is one of the worst places to police, is 8%. Now, if I tell you that Suffolk has 13% of his officers, according to the Home Office information which we got last March. And I've told Tim and Steve about this, they know about this, and this puts them, see the yellow line, absolutely at the bottom of the National League. They are 43rd out of 43 constabularies in terms of the percentage of officers who are claiming to be so sick and injured that they need special concessions. And that hasn't changed. This has happened. Okay, I will come to the question. I will come to the question. These people are saying we want more officers on the list, right? Here's a way to do it. The question is, you are currently facing a percentage of 13% of the officers, the worst in the whole of England and Wales.
Yeah, we've spoken about this.
We've spoken about it many times. Proofs, I'm afraid. What is your target that you set your force for reducing it down from 13% to what? You must have given them a numerical target. I want this figure brought down from 13% to what is it, and what is the time scale you have told them you want it. Because if you're saying you don't have a target, that means you are happy to be 43rd out of 43.
First of all, before that gets answered, one thing I would like to say, you've got to get the context right. The caseload per officer in Suffolk, according to HMRC, is just about the highest in the country. And I would say, because we've had many conversations about this, absolutely everything is recording those figures. All I can tell you is, in my experience of 7 years, when you talk to other forces, I'm not entirely convinced their classification right. But that said, we would all like to see that reduced to absolutely nothing. And we've had many conversations. So I'll let Steve answer.
That 13% is 158 officers.
Well, I don't think those are the latest figures we got. Well, we are making progress. Yeah, no, but this year it has come down. And just so you know, ladies and gentlemen, these figures are looked at with what we call the accountability panel at the whole held 6 times a year, where Steve is held to account for the management of the force. Is this relevant to this?
Well, it's just that we are standing over these chapters. Yeah. I'm rather upset with the implication that our police officers are going off sick.
Yes. So
I really am.
Yes.
I work with them day by day, and they're working hard. The answer is not target setting in terms of illness. The answer is in providing better resources. Hopefully something that whoever is sitting on green bench next year will see to. But in the meantime, let's support our police officers rather than run them down.
Thank you very much. Right. So I'm now going to ask Steve. It's an issue. It's not something, ladies and gentlemen, we ignore. I, as PCC, or Steve as the chief, or anybody else in the organisation, it is not a question of sweeping under the carpet. Steve.
Okay. So we have spoken about this, and Aline has spoken about it with Gareth on many occasions. Right. So we've explained to you very much what we do. I don't recognise the figure of 158 police officers that are not.
It's here. Hold up to
I tell you what, it's a public meeting. I'm really happy. Come and see me in the office, and we'll have a detailed.
But surely the question was.
Well, I'm answering it.
No, you're not. Sorry. The question was, what actions are you going to take to reduce the numbers?
A lot.
Okay. So, actually, there's a huge amount of officers that we cannot deploy in the streets anyway, regardless of whether they're fit. Because we have to answer telephones, we have to record crime. Yeah. There's lots, you recognise and you challenge me, rightly so, about police visibility and numbers. But as an organisation, any police force, and I spent most of my career in London, there is a large body of any organisation that has to do non-front line operational stuff. All of our officers that are on recuperative duties are deployed in a very effective manner. And actually, I do take some challenge. I'm happy to look at this and deal with you personally in more depth about it again. But I do take a challenge that there is an insinuation there that officers in Suffolk don't work as hard or have the same challenges as Nottinghamshire or London or anywhere else. Because actually, the workloads are really high here. People that are committing violence are the same anywhere around the country. It's a tough job to do, and people are working really hard, I can assure you.
So the indication the challenges might be greater, actually, not.
Yeah. Please, ladies and gentlemen, can we not
Well, it's a relevant point. The heart of the point is, are we doing enough with your officers to ensure that they're protecting you, and I am assured as your chief that we're working really hard through occupational health, mental health, and it's really good that the chaplain is here tonight to support everything that we're doing to ensure your officers are out there protecting you. Absolutely dedicated.
Too many compared to other
Let's have a conversation.
We are working very hard. Now we're going to move.
The minimum hours of work on full pay. How many hours can a police officer be off work on full pay per week?
Please, can we very quickly to this one, because otherwise
Just one thing I just want to clarify, because it's quite hurtful to hear some of those comments. What the misunderstanding is about someone being on restricted duties doesn't necessarily mean that they're not out on the streets. So take the engagement officers as an example. We've got 11 engagement officers. 2 of those officers have restrictions. So they're 2 of those figures. It makes absolutely no difference to their day-to-day role. Because they're deployed into roles.
On full pay, and what is your minimum for full pay?
I couldn't tell you that. You'll have to send an email.
The point I'm trying to make is the figures are potentially misleading. Suffolk Constabulary are very good at supporting their officers and the programmes in place to support health and well-being and everything else. If an officer has an issue, they're deployed into a position that makes them most effective, and they're still coming to work and doing their job. Because they sit on those statistics, the statistics are misleading.
Right, I've got 5 people with a hand up, and then please keep them. So we've got a question here, there, and there. So, and then no more, then I'll come to the next one.
Thank you, Tim. So I'm Julian Gibbs. I'm also a counsellor for this particular area, and I would like to stress from the start that we, as 3 counsellors, and myself as a chair of a neighbourhood partnership group working with the police, I have very much high recognition of the work. I know the inspectors in the central area over a period of time. Their commitment, dedication is a credit to the force, credit to the areas which they serve, and I'm largely respectful, as do all councillors of all political persuasions, I'm sure. We're very fortunate here, I think, to have very dedicated people who care about the area and do, in my view, a bloody good job under the circumstances which they're in. However, my question actually is going back to the gentleman. I was actually going to ask a similar question. The Deputy Chief Constable has actually said publicly, and it's been quoted in the press, that the concerns around sickness, which have risen, are a direct result of the cuts being made and the pressure being placed on officers. That is Rachel Curtin. She said that publicly. She's quoted in the press. She said it to 5 News. Those are her words. They're out there in the public domain. She is saying, rightfully, that officers now recognise their mental health and are seeking for counselling and support internally. I'm glad that the Reverend is here to chaplaincy and the work that he does. But this goes back to issues within the force around cuts. If I was working for a business and I saw those levels going up, I think I'd be sacked. So there's also an issue here about management. Management of our resources, management of our officers. So my challenge to you, Commissioner, is what are you planning to do to ensure that we have officers who feel that they are able, confident to go out there and do their job, have the right support, but also address the concerns around sickness within the force as well?
Yeah, well, that's a challenge from my point of view. The operational responsibility is huge, but I'm not washing my hands of this because that's one of the reasons the extra resources, partly through council tax and elsewhere, we put a lot into dealing with mental health, the chaplaincy, occupational health. There is a lot more support than when I first started. I think that's fair to say that than there ever was before, because policing is a people-based organisation. I think a lot of people don't recognise the risks that a lot of these guys are submitted to keep us safe 24/7. I have also said a great deal regarding other parts of the, if you like, public sector. What are they doing? You know, we're not an ambulance service, we're not a mental health service. You're there always as a service of last resort. Missing children, missing people, the demographic change, increase in dementia, these sorts of things. And I've got personal experience of that with my sister-in-law. These are all added pressures, and the difficulty is, until we as a nation recognise that the police should not be there to cover up for absolutely everything, bearing in mind we're a small force with the highest caseload of any constabulary per officer in the country. This goes back many, many years, probably 20 years with the funding formula. You will have heard me talk about that before. I'm continuing to lobby government, and it's a fault in the way that there is a bias in the funding formula to large metropolitan forces compared with us. That has to be rectified, and we've all got to work together for that. It's not a party political point, because this goes back 20 years, and that is part of the root cause of the problem. If we have the same level of resources, even compared with Norfolk, we would have an extra £4 million, which could be another 80, 90 officers. For example, that's central government funding, nothing to do with your council tax. So these inbuilt biases, anomalies are really, really helpful. I'm personally doing what I possibly can. I always said when I was privileged to be elected, it's about what's best for Suffolk first, and that will always be the case for me. That matters, and I will do what I can to support them. Steve and I have a lot of conversations about this. This is something we seriously look at regularly. So all those other things that we put in place that didn't exist 7 years ago are helping them. I do believe the figures are coming down. I really, really do. It's too early to tell definitely, but that's what I'm doing.
Can I just come back one
quick brief, please.
There's obviously a cultural issue here within the force, isn't there? If we've got lots of people off being sick.
Sorry.
I'm disagreeing with those figures. Yeah, what?
And I'd really like to, I can meet you gentlemen privately. I really challenge that back. We don't, my sickness records is around 3.8% at the moment, and is decreasing monthly. So we need to look at what these different government policies are. So we've got restricted officers, as Steve said, that are deployable, that are out doing a really good job keeping people safe. We've got some people that are at home sick. Yes, absolutely. We have a number of people that work for us that are suffering mental health. We've invested, and your challenge is absolutely right to me. I'm the leader of the organisation. You said it's a management failure. Well, actually, I challenge back to you that we are now investing absolutely in leadership training. We're providing our leaders with the right training around recognising stresses and strains of staff so we can support them. We've put extra investment in our occupational health. We've put training and guidance into officers. Speak to these people. But challenge me, absolutely. That's why I really welcome you to come see me privately and have a really good look at what we're doing. Because I don't recognise, sir, I really know the challenge you're saying. We are working really exceptionally hard. We have one of the highest workloads in the country, smallest budgets, smallest workforce, and yet we've got one of the smallest areas of criminality. We're changing our operating model. We're being proactive. We're getting on the front foot. We're getting back into Ipswich. We're arresting more people. We're working really, really hard. We don't have this huge body of people that are all sat home, which is a bit of the insinuation that's coming out this evening.
No, it's not. So you disagree with your Deputy Chief Constable?
Sorry, are we saying the Home Office figures are not correct?
Hang on, please. Sorry, sir. Can I just
one at a time?
Hang on. Can I just come back to you, sir? Because you said disgraceful there.
Yeah, you're insinuating that there are people here who are making very genuine comments, which are facts, stats, which have been produced, not by us, which talk about...
You just said, I agree, you just said, sir, that I disagree with my Deputy Chief Constable and it's disgraceful.
No, I did not say that. I said disgraceful in regards to the insinuation. Then I said, do you disagree with Deputy Chief Constable who's made comments in the press?
My Deputy Chief Constable was speaking like every Deputy or Chief Constable said. We've recognised the stresses and strains of our workforce and that we're working, and you've said that it's a management failure. I'm trying to give you reassurance about what we're doing to support my staff, your officers. What I'm saying is that what the information is there about restricted officers and restricted duties is being played out as if there's 140 something officers not doing anything. You've heard from Steve himself.
No, I didn't say that.
Well,
I didn't say that. They're restricted.
Okay.
They're working at less than 100.
Right. Let me assure you that this is something we take very seriously. By the way, it can include people who might be just diabetic, and actually they function just as examples. So they're not really, they have to be classified. But anyway, so if you want to take it further, come talk to us afterwards. Now we have a question at the back. We have a lady here.
My name is Paul Thorne, and I was Neighbourhood Works Coordinator at Jubilee Park, so I moved to St Mary's Road. I'm a former insurance investigator, and I think you could get funding up the line from the insurance industry, and you could reduce some crime, because I just looked at 2 car break-ins. One, the lady left her purse on the passenger seat, and the other one was a visitor, and she left her handbag on the passenger seat. And we all have a letter because unless they're stealing a car, and I know that car crime's only a part, and it's a huge part, and I'm sure if we push this up the line, if you think it's a good idea, then you will get funding from the insurance industry, because it's just hassle for us having to deal with it. And we had 5 bikes stolen Saturday before last, and they're all insured. It's just hassle, and our premiums go up. If only we could educate the public better, harden the targets, and put that in layman's terms. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, I think that's well said, and that's something that we do a lot anyway. Thank you very much for that. Over here.
To say, there was a recent knife crime, a robbery in the Arbory area. The police officers were there so swiftly, and not 1 or 2, quite a few. They were going through our back gardens, climbing over the walls. People with the public eye were helping as well, and they apprehended this young man. Obviously was barefooted, took for his t-shirt, not prepared to do a runner. And thank you very much for making our streets safer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comments. No, the gentleman there, then I'll come to the lady there.
Me?
Yep, thank you.
My name is Colin Hankins from Cockdot. I've been in correspondence with Tim. It's a rather more simple subject than has been aired so far. It's the speed watch groups.
Yep.
Where we'll be able to monitor 40-mile-an-hour limits, please. We have been in touch.
Yep, thank you. So do you hear the 40-mile-an-hour community speed watch? Steve?
I'm responsible for community speed watch across the county.
Yeah.
We've been doing a lot of work recently. We've had some issues with our volunteering in the office. Fortunately, we've managed to resolve those issues now. We've just had 2 new ones start. I had a discussion with the Assistant Chief Constable only yesterday, and we will be looking at the policy again in the new year, early in the new year. I don't know exactly how that's going to play out, because we need to look at all different elements of it for 20s and 40s. I know other forces do it, and it's something that we need to look at. All I can assure you is that we will look at it early in the new year. I can't say exactly when, because it depends on when we've got things. My issue is that if we try and do it now, we're going to try and run before we can walk, because we've had the issues. We've got to get back on our feet properly with the 30-mile-an-hour enforcement at the moment, with the supporting the groups that are already out there doing a fantastic job they do.
You know, I do appreciate everything, and what with county lines, what I've asked for is relatively low level, but we are the only police force in the whole of East Anglia. They've been doing it for years, probably Norfolk since 2007. Should be doing a bit more than looking at it again now, because it was going to be looked at again in May this year. Now it's next year. Yep. It's a low-level thing. I've got all the time in the world for the police and what you have to do, and the drug and the knives, but we should not be the only county in East Anglia.
I will take that
That's
point.
a big problem over the years.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. The reason we didn't do it earlier this year is because what happened in the back office support.
Okay.
And the way Norfolk do it, Norfolk only do it on 2 sites across the whole of Norfolk for 40-mile-an-hour limits, according to the Speedwatch coordinator. So I spent some time with her a couple of weeks ago. So I wanted to talk through the issues from Norfolk's point of view with that. I promise you we will look at it. We haven't been able to, because at the moment we haven't had the support function in order to process all the returns that we've got, and we were limiting the growth of community speedwatch until we can get that back office function right, because otherwise we're just going to crash the whole scheme. But I assure you myself that I will look at that.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks. Just so everybody knows, in Suffolk as a whole last year, I think there were about 40,000 people were caught speeding, with the average camera system, the 2 fixed camera sites and the vans, including the small community ones that can go into estates and villages and things like that. So there is a lot being done. I know it's not enough, and it comes up at every public meeting, but I wouldn't want anyone to think that in all the list of parties these guys have, that isn't taken seriously, because it is. And I've made sure with the others that there has been investment in there. So and that we're still on the case. I think
you haven't answered my question very well. You've not got a person that's been recent.
Yeah. If you tell us where, like Kelly's worked with others, we will liaise with partners.
Right. Early afternoon, well, we woke up the next day, I found a big lump of concrete underneath my car. They stole my catalytic converter, right? We were asleep in my bedroom, and that happened in my front garden. They were about 18 feet away from my bed. And they jacked my car up and took the catalytic converter. My car was drove off. And all I got was a crime number. They said they couldn't come out and see me because they hadn't got a landmark. So a police officer didn't even come out of my home and speak to me.
If you tell us afterwards the area you live, we are here to ensure that we know that Kerry will speak to her.
He actually said over the phone, we haven't got a landmark to come out and see her.
Well,
that's the whole crap. To cut a long story short, we haven't got a policeman, and that's it.
Right. This is about communication, just so everybody can hear, about a crime was committed on this gentleman's car. But if you've got a specific case like that, I'm not in any way saying it's not important, but as Steve said...
He couldn't even come through my break.
No, I agree.
Looked out my bedroom window.
Absolutely.
This is very serious.
Yes.
He could. He was landing in my car. He had my car jacked up. That's the only way to go. And he couldn't. He ran to the garage. He told me not to drive it.
Yes.
So he couldn't cut through my brake. And that is in danger of life.
I absolutely agree with you.
That is very serious.
It is very serious. Right. So,
that's fact.
Yeah.
You can check that out.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. I'm not dismissing it at all. If we have the detail, that will get looked into. Steve promised to do that. So, absolutely get your point. Clearly, not trying to dive in at all. Please, lady at the back. Thank you.
Sorry, that's a bit of me. Been the victim of crime many a times. Well, now I'm receiving the end of helping the public with their mental health and what happens with being a victim of crime. Because I know it's a rape, but you can help the situation yourself. You can help educate your family members. You can literally help somebody recover from the things that they're going through. Because one of the issues is drinking. A lot of it at the moment in drugs. And if you can sort of reach out to your friends and family and start to be little advocates yourself, you will make a difference yourself. But if you sit there and expect the police to do all the work, you've got another thing going. I have been a victim of waiting for you guys 17 times. I would not like them anymore. But you know what? They're human beings. They've got two pairs of hands. We have a mouth, we have a voice. What happens in Neighbourhood Watch? Get together and do something together. Don't rely on them to put a meeting together. Bring a meeting together and see what you can do to police your own area as well. But you really do have to take care of your mental health. This man's a little bit upset with what happened to him. Has he got any aftercare for someone to help him because he's been a victim of crime? And that's what happens when we're a victim of crime. We have no help. We have nobody to help us through to forgive the perpetrators either and to understand that they are the ones that have mental ill health because they're committing such a horrendous deal that's affecting everyone. So we've all got our equal pain in this rather than just play the blame game.
Thank you. Just so you know about victim care, we have an organisation called Suffolk Victim Care. I don't know if there's any publicity here tonight, but that is available. It's there to support all victims of crime, signpost them to agencies and so on to do it. And it's really, really important we all work together to spread that message out, because that's part of my responsibility. Victims commissioning, I mentioned it earlier in the evening. We do have a budget. We never had that 5 years ago, but 860,000 quid for Suffolk. It's a big step in the right direction, but it really is, of course, it's never enough. But we've got to spread the word about that. There is help available. So I just want to mention it. Gentleman there, thank you.
My name is Adrian, and not so much that I have a question of you gentlemen come. It's more of a statement that I want to make generally for everybody in relation to this gentleman said and this gentleman here in relation to policing numbers. Okay? I was once a police officer myself. I spent 10 years in London with the British Passport Police. Jumping forward, on the 7th of July 2005, there was the London bombers. Okay? I was deployed by senior command to go to Edgware Station, which was one of the sites. When I got there, my sergeant and my inspector tasked me to stand on platform 1 of Edgware Road train station and guard the 7 deceased bodies that were already placed on the platform. Now, I arrived there roughly about, let's call it 11 o'clock that morning. And I stood in my full uniform, stab vest, handcuffs, helmet, the whole lot. And I stood there for 36 hours. Okay, guarding these bodies. London took a shift. The Metropolitan Police, the City of London Police, all combined together with the British Transport Police, to defend these gentlemen sitting at the front, because as I've said, I'm no longer a police officer. I'm now the same as you guys, and I'm here listening to what they have to say. But I have been in that position. Now, speaking as such, for me, what needs to happen, you can't blame the Chief Constable up the front there for the lack of officers on the ground. You've got to go higher than this, gentlemen. And it starts with the government.
Of course.
The government, if I may, are the ones who have to spend the money. Okay? So when the chief says to you, if he puts a patrol out here, this guy's going to walk around for 8 hours. That's all he's going to do. But like you said, he's got missing children, somebody's jumped into the canal, there's a major incident on the Orwell Bridge. All of these things have to
Do you know what, in that period after the young man was murdered in Napton, and the police presence, and I actually think there's something very good for the community, for the young people and the parents of that community to get to know the local police. You know, and I know, okay, that may be a model that we say that we can't have right now, but in my gut, I think that's
what the community engagement officers are for. That is a new thing that only came in less than 18 months ago, because feedback from meetings like this about engagement, and that's why it's been done. It's not just one, it's 11. That is a major change. Sorry, please let us finish.
Yes, basically that's right. The point that I'm trying to make is that we need that change of government or something, but whoever's in that I don't really mind who's in the hot seat in number 10, but whoever is in the hot seat of number 10 has to invest more. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to invest more. And I will say, just as being a former police officer, there are times when you go to a situation that you know is going to be trouble. You're seeing the crew. Okay? So it's you, but you go there and there's 5 or 6 lads fighting outside the club. Point the shouting on the radio for backup. There is none. I've been in that situation. I've been in a situation where I've gone somewhere and I thought, you know what, I have to leave this. And when I make that decision as an officer of the law, that I cannot protect you this because I don't have 3 or 4 more officers to back me up, what are you going to do? You call me, and the control room has sent me, and I get there and say,
okay, I think your point is very well made. Thank you for doing that. And just to reassure everybody, you can forget to put politics on this. I can assure you I've been doing everything I possibly can to get the government to recognise that policing is fundamental to what we do. If we are not safe and secure, I've said it many times, at home, in business, being young or old, we've got one hell of a problem. In this country, as we know, we police by consent, and we do, as various people said, it is about supporting each other. It's not about picking holes in it. It's about working together. That is how we will be successful. And it's really, really important. That's why with our commissioning, helping young people, giving them opportunities, we've got to do more on public sector procurement to provide more employment for our youngsters. And every organisation needs to get off its backside and do more, rather than fuss about rules and regulations. Because if people actually do care about the future of our young people, they can do something about it. And I'll tell you this, as an individual, as a police and crime commissioner, I despair at the attitude of some public sector organisations who are completely and utterly ambivalent about supporting our young people, and it isn't damn well good enough. But I'm not going to give up on that, so I just want to get that one in there as well. We all have a moral obligation, because there is that link between high levels of deprivation, lack of opportunity, poor levels of education, and high levels of crime, abuse and addiction. And it's time.
Austerity, politics.
Yeah, Carol, I don't want to get involved in all that.
Since
I didn't mention that.
I'm sorry.
I'm making.
Cannot pull money.
Right, please, you can certainly say on that.
For 20 years and then not being
right.
fair.
Well, 20 years. Anyway, right. Another question from someone. We aim to finish by 8:30 at the latest. Anyone who has any questions? The gentleman at the front.
I'm Lieutenant Wright for Western Ward, which is my colleagues here. I will say well done to the police officers. We have just recently had a drug dealer with a knife and a table leg arrested and was given 14 months in prison. You can't blame the police officers about the crime. It's the courts that need to be done, not the police officers. It's the court. Another thing I do say, down Bradford Road, actually, that's my area. We've got a lot of Eastern Europeans on street corners. They're there until about 1 o'clock in the morning, intimidating people and young girls. Unfortunately, Bradford Road, the street lamps are so dim that when I've run through to the police, can you recognise them? You can't, because I can see a cross. And one particular area is by the phone box near the old people's home. And they're till about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, shouting, throwing rubbish on the floor. And, you know, I've been there before I went to the court. I've actually caught 5 people injected. Even in our block of flats, that come to communal areas, and there was a bloke there the other day with his trousers down, injected into his testicles. That is what the problem we've got at the moment. I know your police officers are about it, because I've seen them. There is a sergeant down there, I won't mention his name, but he's very good, and he is walking around with 5 officers, new recruits, showing them in the area. So we've got a lot of prosecutors back there again. A lot of these shops that are opening up, I don't know who's giving the licenses, but a lot of these are fronts. Because the cigarettes down there and they're starting to build up all well on the road. And drinks, and they stand outside the shops and intimidate people. We went on a walk around the other day. There's one shop on Bradford Road, one knee shop. They all stand outside, and this poor old chap was disabled. His garden's full of rubbish, am I right? And they urinate there, they're using the toilets, and it's getting a bit out of hand.
Right, so we've got 2 questions there, just in case anybody didn't hear. First one was about sentencing for people who are caught. I'll comment on that. And I'm going to hand over to these guys, probably you, Richard, looking at the, I suppose, the concern that there might be prostitution, drug dealing, blatant drug dealing, and so on in the area. Let me just say about sentencing. What happens is, I actually chair the local criminal justice board now. I have no powers as a PCC, nor as a constabulary, to say whether a particular sentence is appropriate or not. But what we can do, and what I do, is listen to what these guys say, and if it is seen that sentencing generally seems to be inappropriate, or, and this does happen far too often in my view, might be quite controversial, magistrates have got to use the powers they've got to the more of a maximum extent. I'm not one who believes in hanging and flogging, it's not about that, but you have to make sure the sentence satisfies the needs of the victim, but also acts as a suitable deterrent. Now that sentencing isn't necessarily just about locking up people and throwing the key away. It needs to be a proper carrot and stick approach to get people to reform. That should not and never be seen as a soft option. I don't think the balance is right, but that sentencing powers there need to be used more effectively. There's nothing more demoralising for the guys in the constabulary who brought a criminal to justice and then it either doesn't get prosecuted. That isn't good enough, because prosecution in itself, the threat of it, should be a deterrent. And I think we've gone far too far the other way. So that is certainly something you should hear those comments. But I just want to reassure everybody that's something we take very seriously. So thank you for raising that. Richard, on the local issue.
So thank you for raising those points. First of all, those specific points you make about Wellington Street, we do have a number of reports in relation to Class A use and supply. It is a dedicated operation we have in the southern area. We do take it seriously. You referred to one of my proactive sergeants who goes and basically looks to identify these people day in, day out. I've said it before and I'll say it again, we do rely on those reports as to what is going on so that we can do something about it there and then.
They do go to Brett's as well.
Sorry?
Brett's.
Right.
Brett's. Yeah. They go behind there as well.
Yeah, so in terms of that reporting, we will respond to it. Obviously, we are looking at our use of stop search and countering. There is a real empowerment with our newer officers now in relation to, the Chief alluded to earlier, about being proactive, about being on that front foot. My central Safer Neighbourhood team are very proactive, and the ethos is we get through the daily demand and we get out there and we be proactive. So I take your point in relation to the people standing on the paths. It's not been an ongoing issue. I'm aware of the cultural differences there with people congregating. Right. And obviously Norwich Road is very similar, isn't it, to people that congregate.
done.
Yeah.
Where went to court, I've had bin areas, I've had walls removed.
So you've been making efforts yourself to
Making
try and
efforts in
affect
our
it.
area,
Yeah.
so you're more aware of what's going on.
Yeah, I think the crux of it is, I'll happily speak to you, get a few more details after this meeting. In relation to the cultural differences, I'm aware of that, obviously, in terms of the public space, people shouldn't be drinking in public, so we would enforce that if we see it. If we see it when we're on our patrols, then we will confiscate, gain details and develop that intelligence.
So I worry about the old people.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. No, it's not on it, it's antisocial.
It's right by the bus stop.
Yeah.
And I've seen the young girls go by and they're sort of like intimidated the way they go behind like this.
So you refer to the prostitution as well?
Yes.
Comment.
I was approached and I'm ashamed.
Right.
That's a big laugh.
So this is consistent because there's been some real significant positive results in relation to that. We've been working with the individuals who have been encounters.
She's always drunk. She's always drunk.
Yeah, okay. I think we got that right. So that local area. Now, any other questions from anyone who hasn't said anything?
Tim, if I may.
Oh, right.
There's been quite a lot of conversation about cost, money.
Yeah.
Obviously, you always need more money. Mine's more pertinent, to be quite honest. You're more than well aware there was a police station in Felixstowe, which, as you've just said, you're going to replicate here in Ipswich. You're going to amalgamate with the fire station. Why isn't the police station being told and the capital realised?
I can't. It is being sold, and we had got a good offer in. I can't go into details. We did have an offer that fell through. They withdrew. So
that's
just
3 years.
Pardon?
3 years.
No, that what it was. We couldn't sell it. We had to apply for planning permission for residential development, an outline. That took ages with the council. And the reason we do that, ladies and gentlemen, was because when I was first elected, property was being sold off without outline planning permission, which is bonkers, because as you all know, the value is far higher. I, as a PCC, all PCCs are responsible for the estate, sales and purchase and so on. We have to get the what's called the red book valuation, in other words, more or less the maximum value for the taxpayer. We can't just sell it off to any old person or any old body or for any other reason. That was in the offer, which was a very good offer. It was withdrawn just before it was about to be sealed. It's remarketed. Now I hope at last we've got that. And just so you know, ladies and gentlemen, all property disposal, the money stays here in the Constabulary. It does not go off to the government or get ring-fenced for doing other things. So we try to maximise that. It is a balance, but all the surplus property is sold off and reinvested in the Constabulary. And I hope within the next month or two there will be an official announcement to say that has been done.
So presumably you started the process with regard to the Ipswich transfer?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, everything is done. I'm very, very hot on that, I can assure you. Steve will know that. Don't try not to let anything slip at all. But we are sometimes in the vagaries of the market. People put offers in, we think we've got there, then at the last minute they withdraw it, which is a pain, but I'm afraid we have to put up there. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, good. Right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be here for a few minutes after. Thank you very much for all your questions. It's been very, very successful. And hope you have a safe journey, and thank you very much for coming.
Good day.